and welcome to the July 9th, 2019 Planning Commissioner regular meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. If I could have everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will proceed to the roll call.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Lopez. Here. Chair Sanchez.
Here.
Commissioner Quill.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Wilbert.
Here.
Okay. Commissioners Liang and Guerrero are excused. Commissioner Ruiz is absent, and Commissioner Chang will arrive late. We have quorum.
Thank you, Stephanie. Moving on to the administration of oath. Is anyone wishing to speak on a matter on the agenda listed tonight?
Anybody who turned in a speaker slip or any of the applicants, if you could please stand. Please raise your right hand and repeat, I'm going to go ahead and issue it. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Moving on to is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda?
Your slip.
If you could stand over here and please state your name and address for public record.
Christina M. Marquez, 1494 West 9th Street, San Bernardino, 92411.
Thank you.
Tonight I would like to address the Planning Commission in regards to the alcoholic beverage control licenses for the city of San Bernardino. In previous years, the west side of San Bernardino was populated with many mom and pop stores because there were no grocery stores nearby. There were Stater Brothers, Safeways, Sages, or Alpha Betas, but they were all on the east side of the freeway or on the other side of the tracks. Slowly, family-owned stores began to dwindle and close as new venues for shopping began springing up. Unfortunately, the moms and pops were too old to continue their businesses or passed away. Their children had grown up and moved out of town. They had no desire to stay in San Bernardino and run these stores. Fast forward to today. Within the past decade, we have had various businesses come to the west side. They have name and corporate recognition, such as Walgreens, CVS, Arco, AM/PM Mini Marts, Union 76, Shell, El Super, and 7-Eleven. Liquor can be bought at all of those venues, and many more. Many liquor stores line the Mount Vernon Route 66 corridor already. There are more stores on Medical Center Drive, one of which has been there since the street's name was Muscat. Welcome to the 21st century, where thanks to Instacart, you can now order your alcoholic beverages online for delivery directly to your home by Walmart, Sam's Club, Stater Brothers, Costco, and soon Amazon will join others in the delivery of your preferred alcoholic beverage right to your door. It is the judgment of the Northwest Project Area Committee that the west side is already oversaturated with liquor stores. and there is no need to grant additional liquor licenses in San Bernardino, especially with all the options that are now available to consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on a matter not on the agenda? I see no one else. We will proceed forward, and we will go to the consent calendar.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. For the consent calendar, where before you are the approval of the minutes for your past meeting of June the 11th, and they are presented as completed. Thank you.
Perfect. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the consent calendar? No? All right. If not, may I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I make a motion that we accept the consent calendar with the recommendations for approval of the draft minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. We'll continue on. All right. Continuing on to public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located at the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give your address for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will begin deliberation and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendment and amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final actions unless an appeal is filed and a fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda, or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. Going on to item number 2, staff report, please.
Item number 2 is conditional use permit 17-17. This is a request to establish a banquet hall at 194 West Club Center Drive within the CR3 zone. And you can see it's at the end of Club Center Drive, just off of Hunts Lane, within an existing commercial center. The tenant space that the proposed banquet hall will be using was the former Stingers nightclub. As such, the building itself and the tenant space has already been improved in a way that will accommodate the banquet facility. There's 13,800 square feet total. It's separated into 2 entertainment areas with a shared kitchen. Among those entertainment areas, there's approximately 3,613 square feet of seating. Based on the square footage for the seating, the parking is calculated to require 104 parking spaces. There are currently 187 parking spaces available. In addition to that, the banquet hall will operate on Saturdays from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. So this is offset from the other commercial uses at the site that primarily operate Monday through Friday on a 9 to 5 schedule. So again, this is the former Stingers nightclub, and the building will remain largely the same aside from possible signage. This is the layout of the floor area. So you can see that there's 2 separate dining areas, dance floors, seating areas, and a shared kitchen. Based on the Planning Division's recommendation, we ask that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-038, finding the approval of conditional use permit 17-17 to be categorically exempt under Section 15301 for existing facilities of the CEQA guidelines, and approving conditional use permit 17-17 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. I can take any questions.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open public hearing for item number 2. Is there anyone wishing to speak on item number 2 at this time?
You don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving.
Hi, everyone.
If I could have
would-
you. Oh yes, if I could have you state your name
name,
and
okay.
address.
My name's Erica, E-R-I-C-A, Covian, C-O-V-I-A-N. My address is 237 East Arbith Street in the city of Rialto, California, 92377.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is my mother, Aurora Martinez, and I have my sisters, Elizabeth, Cuicas, Claudia Arroyo, and Veronica Arroyo. So I'm going to be speaking tonight. I just wanted to formally introduce them before I did. So my name is Erica Covian. I'm co-owner of Aurora's Golden Moments. I'm so sorry. We have been in business for over 15 years. We started our business here in the city of San Bernardino. It started as a dream for my mother, being a single Hispanic mother of 6 girls and couldn't speak any English, to be able to understand how to build her dream. She started selling wedding dresses at swap meets and then relocated to the city of Riverside, where she established a venue for over 10 years. We have ties with this amazing community of San Bernardino since 1979, when my mother first came to San Bernardino. We also had ties with our uncle, Alfredo Enciso, being part of the San Bernardino Chamber of Commerce for over 20 years. We are a family-owned business, which consists of my mother and my 5 sisters. We are also partnered with Dion Taylor, the representative of San Bernardino, for the assembly member of James Ramos, helping to host youth events at our venues for the organization that can't afford to pay for it. So we offer that for free. We also donate to our local nonprofit youth organizations to help with baseball and football teams, because we are strong believers in building our youth. They are our future. We are strong believers in support our local law enforcement, public safety, and fire departments. We would love to also join the Chamber of Commerce to build a better business relationship with the city of San Bernardino and our community. We would also like to offer our venue to the city of San Bernardino to be able to host any city events. I would like to thank everyone here on the board for the opportunity of allowing me to come up here and introduce Aurora's Golden Moments. Thank you very much for all your hard work, time, and attention.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I have a couple of questions and then a question over here. Help me out here. Where is 194 West Club Center Drive? What are the streets? Or put the map back on? Or
Okay. Let's
and
skip
what
back
is
just for a
located
moment.
around it?
So, okay, Hunts Lane is this main drive here. Club Center is right here.
Is that
So
south of the
it's
10?
It's south of Redlands Boulevard, south
Okay.
of the 210.
Okay,
Yes, the 10
okay.
freeway. Excuse me. So it's kind of the very south east corner of the city. In fact, just on the other side of Hunts Lane here, this is all city of Colton.
Okay, okay. Is that an existing building? It's already there? Is there going to be any modifications either
There's
to the
no
building?
modifications.
But it's an existing building that has
It's an
been
existing
installed.
building. It's the site of the former Stingers nightclub that was down there.
The what club?
The Stingers nightclub. It's been closed for a while, but that's the same building.
Well, not one of my hangouts, so I don't know it. What is around it? What are there, is it residential, is there business area?
It's primarily businesses. In the city of Colton, you have various industrial businesses. Looks like a few truck yards. The rail line is just south of that. There's a storage facility directly south of this particular site. There's a few of the newer Loma Linda medical centers right in that area as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions if you don't mind coming back. You say you've been in business, your family, for 15 years. Had you operated a hall such as this in the past?
In the city of Riverside, we did.
Okay, so you do have experience operating a hall and everything like that?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that was really the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff. What are the proposed hours of operation?
Saturdays from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Thank you. And I also see condition 12 states that the sale of alcoholic beverages on the premises is not a part of this permit. A future request for ABC license for this subject site will be required using a separate conditional use permit subject to approval by the Planning Commission. So is this project going to also be coming back to us again for that approval?
I don't believe that is planned at this time. That's just kind of a standard condition that we put in place because they were not proposing alcohol at this time. But we know as businesses grow, sometimes that need does come up. So we just wanted to clarify that alcohol was not proposed as part of this particular application. But if they do want to do that in the future, then that would require another CUP.
And as far as security on the premises, is there going to be 24-hour monitoring, lighting? As far as security guard, is there going to be armed security, or is there? Can you speak on the security parameters for this proposed site?
We actually do have 24 hours camera surveillance that we have all in the outer area around the whole building. When we are operating for business, we actually do have security guards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A quick question.
Yes.
I know that you're operating on Saturday from 7 to 2. What is the building going to be used for in the other days, on the other days, I should say?
Throughout the week, we're actually trying to see if we can offer maybe some free Zumba classes to be able to help, especially a lot of single women, to kind of, come out and at least get some workout.
Okay. And then I also noted, this could be directed either to you or staff, that one of the notes was that there might be additions to the project, negligible to expansion or something, or no?
No expansion is...
No expansion?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No?
Through the chair. Erica, I'd like to compliment you for bringing your business to San Bernardino,
Thank you.
and our Chamber of Commerce would definitely like to have you as a member.
Thank you very much. I take that. That's an honor. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And don't forget, please join the chamber.
I will.
Okay.
I will. Thank
So,
you.
I think on behalf of everyone on the commission, we welcome you to San Bernardino.
Thank you very much.
So, we'll, if no one else wishes to speak, I hereby close public hearing, so you can actually take a seat.
Thank you guys very much for the opportunity, okay?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chantal.
continuing on, onto item number 3. If we could have a staff report, please.
Yes, Commissioners. Item number 3 involves conditional use permit 18-17. It's for the property located on the south side of East Mill Street, just west of Waterman Avenue, approximately 500 feet or so. The proposal is to establish an truck trailer storage facility. That's one, Michael. It'll be 3 buildings, separate buildings. They will be identical. The total square footage of them will be 24,630 square feet. The property is zoned CH Commercial Heavy. This is a rendering of one of the buildings. Again, there will be 3 exactly like this. This is the zoning map of the area. As you can see, the property is up above, which is the purple color, and the light industrial, which is just below off of Allen Street. This is an aerial of the property. Again, so we have Mill Street to the would be on the upper portion of the slide, and Waterman Avenue is the street that's to the right of the slide, at a diagonal. Down at the bottom, you'll see that cul-de-sac. That is Allen Street. That'll be the primary access for the trucks coming in and out. These are some of the pictures of the surrounding areas. So this is looking towards the property. This is the site plan. So the bottom lower left, you can see the end of the cul-de-sac there. That's where the access will be. Up on the top, there's another driveway onto Mill Street, which will be the secondary access. There will be some vehicles coming in and out of Mill Street from there, but the primary trucks will come in off of Allen Street. You will also note that Waterman is at the end of the, and so there will not be any access from the site onto Waterman. That's just going to be a cul-de-sac on site, just going to be a turnaround, which meets our public works standards as well as our fire standards for fire department standards for turnaround in there. So along that lower portion there of that long arm, if you will be truck parking and trailer parking for that. And this is the typical floor plan for each of the 3 buildings. So they'll be comprised of work areas, so some work bays. There'll be some offices and storage areas in each one. They will not all be constructed at the same time. They will. They're looking to start for one of the buildings at first. It'll be the going back on the site plan. The first to be constructed will be the one on the far right-hand side, which is labeled on the side as Building C. So I'm trying to see if I get my little light so it doesn't shine on that. And anyhow, but it'll be, this is the first building to be constructed right here. These are the elevations. Again, so you'll have the first level, which will be some offices. You have the three service bays. You do have the canopy area where there'll be some trucks that'll be stored there while they're being repaired, cleaned and what have you. I will also like to note that there was a mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the site because of its size. The site's approximately 7 acres, almost 8 acres, covered all of the impacts as it relates to traffic, air quality, noise, all of those items. And so there has been a mitigation monitoring program that's been included, part of the conditions of approval. There's been some added conditions. And so for that, the project does comply with our development code in terms of the standards. It meets some of our objectives that the council has adopted for city goals and policies, and it does comply with our development standards for these types of projects within that zone. With that, we're recommending the adoption of the mitigated declaration and the approval of the conditional use permit. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wanted actually to open it up to the public, if anyone has anything to say on item number 3, or the applicant.
Is the applicant here? No, Ed?
No? Okay.
The applicant is not here. Apparently, they have been notified both by phone message, and they did receive a copy of the notice, as we do with all of our applications and surrounding property owners. Should the, so it's up to the commission if you'd like to proceed. If you have some questions that you believe are important for the applicant to answer, that I can answer, that are more appropriate, we could certainly continue the public hearing to the next meeting. That's up to you. Thank you.
I have some questions.
Okay.
And I think Oscar can answer it. So let me see where this is at. This is on the south side of East Mill Street, but west of South Waterman. So it's between Waterman and Central?
The best way that I can look, if you start as a benchmark, I think a few of us know where Vicky's is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind looking up at the monitor up here, this is where Vicky's is,
Oh,
World
okay.
Famous Hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you come down, this is where the start of the property is. So if there's a flood control channel here,
Uh-huh.
and so if you were so there would be some driveway access here, which would be secondary. This is Waterman, it's here. There'll be no access here, and the primary access will be right here at Allen Street.
Could you, where, this little area is Allen Street, that would be the entrance in and out?
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is all industrial down here. There's
And when
warehouses.
you're saying trucks, you're talking about 18-wheeler? Or what are we talking about?
Yes, they're the large vehicles. And
So-
so what they do is they have their own fleet, and so this is going to be their, so they're not going to store other company vehicles. It's going to be their own trucking fleet for their own storage, personal storage, and for their own maintenance of their own vehicles.
Okay.
So they're company-owned.
But we're talking about the big,
That's
big
correct.
rigs, the
Mhm.
big rigs. Okay, so
Yes.
that's why you mentioned the thing about the noise and everything else. Are there any residential areas around that? Because most of that is business, isn't it?
It's all
So
industrial.
business.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Are the Vicky customers going to be complaining about all the?
Mhm.
We hope not, okay. The other thing you mentioned, and I think just for the information, I think for
Mhm.
everybody here, you mentioned that this project is consistent with what the city's objectives are. What are those objectives in
Well,
terms of?
we have a list, and if you may have noted on our staff reports, where there's a section that we talked about mayor, city council goals and objectives.
Mhm.
It's in our report. And so through a workshop, the council has adopted a series, I think there's 7 or 8 different areas. 2 of them, which is objective 3 and 4, I believe, that talks about economic development and sustainability in the community. And so some of these, they call for development that's compatible and consistent with the surrounding area, job creation, economic development.
Okay.
Those are really the main goals for that.
Does this applicant have other operations such as this in other parts of?
They are actually relocating from the city of Fontana.
To San Bernardino?
That is correct. They've
Wow.
outgrown where they're at. I believe where they're at now is I think he said it was like a 2-acre site there. They have one building which they've outgrown, and they've come here and to relocate.
So the only question that I would have directed, since you have offered to communicate it to the applicant, is make sure you encourage them to join the
I will.
Chamber of Commerce.
I already
and
wrote that
welcome them.
down.
All right.
I wrote
all
that
right.
down. I know Larry will come after me
My
if they
bad.
don't. And we'll double team with Ed Bonneman. He's the engineer on this
All right,
project.
then.
So
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You answered all my questions.
I did fill out a slip, but can I ask a question?
if you spell,
Yes. More than welcome to come to the podium. If you could state your name and address for public record.
Can I swear you in first?
Yeah.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Okay, your name and your address, please.
Bruce Hefner. I live at 780 Avery Street, San Bernardino, 92404. I have a property that is right next to that where it looks like that the arm out there, it's going to be truck parking. Is that where they're going to store their trucks, the big rigs?
yes.
Now, I know a lot of the places that have where they have that, are they going to be allowed to let their trucks run?
No,
For sure.
yes.
How do we stop it if they do? Because I'm concerned because my building is right there. When we do work in there, everything is wide open. I don't want fumes coming in. I'm not against this project, but I just want to make sure that my employees are safe from the diesel fuel.
If you contact us, we will look into it as it comes in. One of the things that we are, per our code, as you may recall, some of our past applications where our code does have provisions for if there's any issues that arise from the operation over the course of time, we do have the opportunity to bring that, either work the issue out with the property owner. If we don't come to that resolve, we could then bring it back to the Planning Commission to get further direction.
One last question. The little cul-de-sac, Allen, that is relatively a very narrow street. When you have trucks coming in, 2 trucks at a time, it could create a problem there too. It's all industrial. I know the whole area over there, so some of the streets over there are quite narrow. When you start putting in 2 semi-trucks and you've got a line of semi-trucks going through there, is there going to be any parking over there at all?
Not from that facility, no.
No, I'm not talking about them parking there, but getting through there. Is there enough room for that?
According to the traffic studies, yes, there is.
Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oliver, I have a question also, very much like Bruce brought up there. Is Allen Street here is just a 2-lane street, I believe?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, with all that traffic going through there, is there any, when the city does a project like that or offers to work with somebody to do a project, are the roads okay for that kind of traffic?
So to answer your question, per the conditions of approval, Allen will be resurfaced. And then on Mill, it's just a small stretch. You know, we can only do the frontage, but Allen has been conditioned to be resurfaced in that stretch there.
By our Public Works Department?
No, by the applicant.
By the applicant, okay.
And so it's just going to be the frontage on Mill Street? It's not going to be the whole little section?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will hereby close public hearing.
I've got a comment or two.
Oh, yes? Oh, please.
Yes. Stormwater runoff on the parking lot. You know, the flood control right next door to it. Is there methods of storing that water or controlling it? Because there's going to be a lot of runoff of oils.
Yes. Yes, there is. If all projects are required to prepare a water quality management plan, and that to identify how they're going to retain the water. State law prohibits you to run off water from your site onto the public right-of-way like used to be done before. And so if you, let me see where that site plan is. If you don't mind turning to the slide on the screen here. This area here, these are going to be retention basins. That's why you see these little lines here are contours. Lack of a better description, a hole or little ditch here to retain, so the runoff will come in this direction. It'll come in this direction as well. So we have a surface area here for retention. We also have one down in here, because all us golfers know that water goes towards the ocean, and so.
So that's open storage then?
That's correct, open chambers.
Does that water get, I don't know, from my own information, does it just sit there and evaporate, or does it get pumped out?
There is a system, if you will. The way that the retention basins are prepared are with certain drainage mechanisms, or retention, I should say. There's gravel and certain soils and things, and so to absorb and to hold for a period of time, to allow it to evaporate.
But residue is still sitting there?
It'll sit, and yes, to answer your question.
But any plans, I mean, because there's diesel fuel and all that.
Well, there's not going to be diesel fuel. So through the city's environmental controls, is that what environmental control division? The plans will go to them, and so areas that involve maintenance, if you will, the maintenance areas. They have to have their systems in place so it captures any grease, any spillover, what have you. And they actually do not do heavy services of the vehicles here. It's more light maintenance, but in any regard, they do have systems in place to capture any oil that drips off when they wash their trucks or what have you in some of in the open bays. It's just like a car wash where they have to capture those in drains, recirculate it, and do what they do. So so there are measures in place to address any water that either through rain or otherwise gets on the property, or how the properties are maintained or the vehicles are serviced. And I think that the days of running wasting water on the property and off the property are long gone. And that's through our measures at the city, and we're under the a federal quality act, Clean Water Act, that we monitor regularly.
If I can add to that,
Thank
there's
you.
continuous testing going on also. So most business around the area are involved in that too.
And if you drive up and down Waterman, and I'll point you to a couple of projects just so you can, if you wonder what these retention basins kind of look like, you'll notice if you're going south on Waterman, there were two new buildings that were constructed on the right-hand side. One of them is the 1 million square footer, and just to the north, so there's two buildings. So if you drive by slowly, you'll see these parks down in a hole kind of a thing. That's what they look like, so they're landscaped. There's trees, in and around them and what have you. So they are improved. So there is a little bit of an aesthetic value to them. It's not just an open pit with dirt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? All right, so I'll hereby close public hearing for this. May I entertain a motion for item number 3?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 3.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
No.
All right. Motion passes. And thank you again to staff for this
You're
project.
welcome. You're welcome.
If I may, Chair, I just want to recognize that Commissioner Chang has now arrived.
Thank you.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Now it's on.
I did read the agenda, and I did look up on the map. I did my research. Thank you for providing
Okay.
it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. All right. So moving on to item number 4, if we could have the staff report, please.
Yes. Item number 4 involves conditional use permit 18-22. It's for the property located at 2858 North Del Rosa. It's located adjacent to the 210 freeway. This was a remnant parcel from Caltrans that was purchased, and the property is within the general commercial zone, and the proposal is for a drive-through only restaurant containing approximately 860 square feet, whereas my understanding you get world-famous breakfast burritos there at Alberto's. Anyhow, so again, through the analysis, it's going to be a walk-up window only, no indoor seating, no outdoor seating. They will be open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And again, this is purely a drive-through. This is showing the zoning map. Again, the red indicates general commercial. The yellow to the adjacent is remnants of residential there. Again, this is the freeway is just to the on the bottom of the slide. The on-ramp to the freeway is adjacent to it. This is an aerial showing the property. This is looking directly on the site. As you can see, it's a pretty narrow strip there. This is looking on Del Rosa Avenue, looking towards the north or the mountains. The subject site of the property is on the left-hand side, just where right above, right there, right between the ramp and the Shell station. This is looking south on Del Rosa, where you've got the property is on the right-hand side, and the Shell station's right there. This is a kind of a little overshot view, where on the left-hand side, you can see where the proposed restaurant is adjacent to the on-ramp. This is an on-ramp that's right next to it. This is the site plan. Again, their access will be directly off of Del Rosa. Drive in and around. Does have adequate landscaping as required by the code. Does provide, it's a required landscaping and access for fire emergencies and for our refuge collection or trash. This is the floor plan. We have the elevations of the restaurant itself. This shows the landscaping plan. Again, because it's a long triangular piece, most of it is unusable, so those remaining portions will have landscaping that'll be maintained. With that, our recommendation is that this project, that the Planning Commission consider adopting Resolution 2019-040 based on the findings that we've made. It's consistent with the general plan in terms of commercial uses, meets some of our goal objectives by the Council of Economic Development, creating businesses for the town, and our environmental is, again, categorically exempt as an infill project. We're recommending approval of conditional use permit 1822 based on our findings and our recommended conditions of approval. I'd be glad to answer any questions. The applicant, Alex Musino, is here if you have any questions of him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Alex Musino. My address is 11965 Villa Hermosa in Moreno Valley. I'd like to thank Mr. Mujica for that great introduction there. We are world famous almost. Okay. Not quite. And it's Albert Tacos. It's
okay.
Similar to Alberto's Mexican
Alberto's,
food.
How many are there?
They all started in the same place.
It's called Albert's Tacos?
Albert Tacos, just one
Albert,
word.
okay.
And we have current 11 locations, 2 in Colorado, and the rest are here in California, Southern California. We have currently one in San Bernardino at north end off of Little League Drive. Used to be a Popeyes a while back, and we've operated that store there 6.5 years. And just for reference, I built the Alberto's on Highland in 204 there. And now this is Albert Tacos, though. I'd like to thank staff for working hard. We've been working on this project for a little while, but finally worked out all the kinks, and staff was very helpful. Elizabeth, and then Chantal, I think, started with, and then Elizabeth and Oliver. So we finally got to the finish line, and it's going to be a very nice project. There used to be Italian deli there, and that burned down a while back. So it's going to be a good use for that neighborhood. We're going to, instead of having homeless people living there and dumping on the place, we're going to have a nice little building. As Oliver said, we're just going to be a drive-through, hopefully be successful at this location. I just wanted to mention a couple of things, and I briefly spoke with Oliver that this project will require a lot merger instead of a parcel map. That one of the was mentioned in the conditions, and also I wanted to get clarification that Del Rosa Avenue is a secondary highway, not a major arterial, and the existing typical street section is for a secondary highway, and that's the way it's going to stay. Okay? If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Yes, I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So the building that used to be an Italian deli, that's the building that you're going to occupy?
No.
Or it's not there?
It's a brand new building.
It's going to be a brand new
Yes.
building. All
Brand
right,
new
all
building.
right. With
Yeah.
beautiful landscaping and
Well,
everything.
as much as possible.
You're going to
It's-
make Del Rosa off-ramp a destination, right?
Oh, definitely. It's going to, we're going to compete with Starbucks.
Okay. The other question, it's just a drive-through?
Yes.
I thought I heard also a walk-up window?
Yeah, it is, of course. It is a walk-up window and drive-through.
Walk-up window
Yes.
and drive-through?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you having, since there is no indoor seating, is there
No.
seating outdoors?
No.
No, okay, so they just take and go?
That's correct.
Okay.
Or they can buy food at the walk-up and eat in their car.
Okay. And Mr. Musino, are you interested in joining the Chamber of Commerce
Yes,
of the
we
City of
will.
San Bernardino?
Of
Please.
course. You
haven't already?
Strongly.
thought
If
you
you
already
haven't
were.
already, we strongly encourage you.
We have various memberships from different companies
It's a
already,
good
but
group, so please.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Mr. Messino, I
Yes,
am
sir.
very familiar with that area,
Yes,
and the comment you made about being another Starbucks, that is a very congested corner, morning, night, all the time. And it's probably because the stoplight just north of or right about where the Shell station is,
yes,
and just to the freeway on-ramp.
that's correct.
Has any consideration been given to the length or the way to get in and out of that place and causing a traffic jam on Del Rosa?
Actually, there is, if I may.
Yeah.
A traffic analysis has been prepared for this.
Okay.
We worked with Caltrans as well, with our Public Works Department, our traffic engineer. So the conditions of approval will require, I'm trying to find a good, see if I had a good aerial. So if you don't mind looking at the larger screen, this turn pocket is going to be lengthened. So there's going to be modifications here. There's going to be a curb, I believe there's a median that's going to be constructed here to kind of control this. And so there is going to be the, allow for the left-hand turn, no U-turn at this location. And so, so there was some consideration to that, so that left-hand will be lengthened.
So you'll be able to make a left-hand turn into the facility?
That's correct. No, well,
Heading north?
No.
no?
I
No,
don't
it's just
think
a
so.
right in, right out on Del Rosa, going south.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
condition.
more practical.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the only.
So I believe there was, you're right, there's going to be some signage that will say.
No U-turn.
No U or no left.
Correct.
There.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, because
That's
Yes.
correct.
cars may want to make a U-turn to
Yes.
come back into your facility.
But it's no U-turn.
Yeah.
It's going to be a,
to go down to the line, make a left onto the street,
Come back,
Correct.
yes.
come back.
well, unfortunately, though, because when the highway was built, it left remnant parcels,
Oh, yeah.
and Caltrans is interested in building highways. They really don't pay much attention as to the potential hardship or damage they might do to adjacent property owners in the future when they want to develop their properties. And that was a remnant parcel from Caltrans. But my reference to Starbucks is that it's not going to be the traffic, it's just going to be our sales are going to compete with them.
Sure, I understand. And I appreciate you giving some interest in that lot and even cleaning it up.
Yes.
Like I said, I travel that every day for many, many years. So I've seen what's happened there, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Will there be a sign, I didn't understand, are there going to be a median that's going to be added to that section?
It's going to be raised, yes.
It is going to be raised? Okay. Because then I was thinking putting a no left sign or something like that, so that people wouldn't.
Yeah, it'll be hanging on the arm there.
All right, perfect. Okay.
Quick question regarding the vegetation at the frontage of the site. On the site plan that we saw just a second ago, right there, yes, what kind of planting would that be?
It's just going to, well,
Landscaping.
there's going to be some trees and of course some bushes, but
Okay.
that area predominantly there is going to be for our water quality management plan. For
Okay.
as Oliver was speaking in relation to the other project, that's where our water is
Chamber.
going to be retained, and then it's going to be infiltrating downward. So it's not going to go off the property, and that's a requirement by federal law.
And you referenced that you made it to Starbucks again.
Yes.
Because once you said Starbucks, there's a bit of an expectation.
Oh, well, our burritos are better than theirs.
Yeah,
all I can say.
we believe so. You're looking forward to, we look forward to the beautification of that corner
Thank
of
you.
that street,
Yes,
coming off the ramp.
Yeah, we'll do it. What we're doing on site is going to be all concrete. It's not going to be asphalt. So it's going to be concrete, pavers, for example. So it's going to be a nice little project.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes.
The drive-through, since it's a drive-through business only, we see, how many cars can your drive-through accommodate where they're not on the street, like we see sometimes down here on Fifth Street. where
If I
the in
may,
and out.
again, if I can point you to the slide up on the screen, it's, you know, they'll come in and the queue starts from way back here.
Right there.
So it comes around, and then here's your order box, and then boom, then you come here, and there's actually two
Yes,
two
windows.
lanes where you can merge out here and then exit out. So really, on a good day, I mean, it's stacking all here. Typically, our drive-throughs require room for 6 cars to stack from the sign itself. So from here, you would have to go back. 6 cars could have to be able to park here, but as you can see, you've got this whole stretch here for cars to come out, so we don't get a situation like some of our other areas.
Yeah, especially if the tacos are very popular.
Oh, yes.
And that's what you want, so I just, because as it has been noted, there is a lot of traffic there.
There is, unfortunately, you know, what's there we can't change. But the
As long as
drive-through.
you have enough space.
Yes, and we have a turnout, basically, where, you know, if there's an order, a big order, the car can pull over to the right, and we'll walk out their order, and still have another car next to the building. So we're going to have capacity there in that drive-through, just at the entrance of the drive-through, to the exit of that drive-through, about 11 cars.
Right.
I have my apologies. One final question. Where will the proposed fire lanes be for emergency vehicles access?
Well, the site can accommodate, there isn't necessarily fire lanes, but they're able to, fire department has approved the access here that they can get in and out through here.
Okay, perfect. That was my main concern.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest here in San Bernardino and bringing this tacos to our
Thank you for
our
your help.
hometown.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? At this time, I'm going to close public hearing. May I entertain a motion?
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 4.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes unanimously. Congratulations. Continuing on to item number 5, if we could get the staff report.
Item number 5 is conditional use permit 19-06. The proposal is to expand an existing religious facility located at 882 South Waterman Avenue. It's located in the industrial light and office industrial park zones. Both of these zones allow for churches subject to the approval of a conditional use permit. As part of the overall project, it's requested that there will be the removal of 3 temporary structures that are currently on site and 2 permanent structures in order to construct a new 12,240 square foot structure that would contain a new sanctuary and some additional classrooms, and that'll just kind of clean up the site a little bit so we don't have multiple structures on site. As part of the proposal, we'll also be adding new landscaping, a new trash enclosure, adding additional parking spaces, and just cleaning up the fire department access for the site. The project requires a total of 101 parking spaces, but 122 are provided. So this is the existing religious facility. This is the that you can see in the top photo is the main structure, and then you can see on the bottom photo there's some of the smaller kind of temporary and other structures that are on the site. And this is from the rear. This is from Lincoln Avenue. The parcel does actually go all the way to the end of Lincoln Avenue. So that's the view from there. So as you can see, the parking, sorry, whoa, a little carried away there. The parking area will be improved. We have a new trash enclosure and a new sanctuary building with some additional classrooms. You can see the sanctuary is the main part of the building, and then classrooms kind of on either end. And these are the exterior elevations, the north and east elevation, and then the south and west elevation. The planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-041, finding the approval of conditional use permit 19-06 to be categorically exempt under Section 15332 for infill development projects of the CEQA guidelines, and approving conditional use permit 19-06 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
Thank you. All right. I hereby open public hearing for agenda item number 5. I do have someone who wishes to speak, Steve Murray. You can come up.
Steve Murray, 1177 Idaho Street, Redlands, California. I'm the architect for the project. Basically, this is a project that the churches look forward to getting together and finally constructing what they need for their growing congregation. We appreciate the assistance that staff has given us in getting this through. Mainly, I'm here just to answer any questions that you may have.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions?
May I ask a question? Yeah. What's the exterior building finish?
It's going to be stucco.
Stucco. What's the height?
The height is, I think,
To
about
the ridge.
24 feet or something like that. Yeah.
And you mentioned that demolishing 3 existing structures.
There's an existing house on site and then some sheds and some other things that are in that location. They're going to be taking those down to put the building in that location.
So the total new construction is 12,240 square feet?
Yes.
Okay. And the offices, is that within the same footprint?
The existing sanctuary that's there, they're going to repurpose and use. That allows them to maintain use of the facility while they're building the new building. And then that'll be repurposed as classrooms or whatever they need in that. And then there's a secondary building that is, I think, geared more for the use of youth and stuff, which is the one that's to the left on the lower portion of the site.
Are you also the landscape architect for this project?
We did the preliminary landscaping, yes.
Okay. And then can you point out where you have the landscaping proposed?
There's landscaping to the west and around the main building. There's around the perimeter.
Okay.
There's a central access point that goes through. There'll be landscaping on that, trees along that whole area, and et cetera. And then there's also along, like the southerly property line and the other property lines that'll have shrubs and other, landscaping in those locations.
So will your property be gated at nighttime?
Yes, it'll be gated.
And you'll have exterior lighting?
Oh, yes.
Do we
There's
have-
parking lot lighting distributed over the entire site. I think we have to meet a 1-foot candle or something for security purposes
Right.
per the code.
Are you affiliated with the church?
No,
Are
I'm
you a member? You're just the owner of the property, or?
No, I'm the architect.
You're the architect,
Mhm.
okay.
Any other questions on this item? No? Is there anyone else wishing to speak or ask a question? If not, I hereby close.
I've got my light on.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So we go over the traffic control onto Waterman. Obviously, facilities like that dump a lot of cars off and a lot of cars in. How is that being handled?
Well, basically, because of the divider that's there, we're right in, right out for the main deal. We also have a secondary access along Lincoln to the back of the property, so that can also be used as access in and out of the property.
And the turn lanes are going to be expanded. I'm not sure I understand.
Essentially, there is a divider at that location in the street, so you cannot actually do a left turn into the property.
It's right in, right out only already, so that will control traffic. Additionally, because several structures are being removed, the total expansion area was not significant enough to require a traffic impact analysis for this.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
What is the closest street, cross street to this,
Just north of the site is Central, right here.
just north is Central?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will hereby close public hearing. May I entertain a motion for item number 5?
I'll make a motion to approve conditional use permit for 19-06, number 5, agenda item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed? Unanimously. All right. Continuing on to item number 6, if we could have the staff report, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Item number 6 tonight, let me skip forward. Thank you. It's okay. It's development permit type P18-09 and variance 19-03. This is a proposed project to construct a 6-unit multifamily residential development. It's in the residential medium zone located approximately 3459 North E Street. Sorry, it was the wrong page. I think some of my PowerPoint is out of order. Sorry, the project would propose to construct 6 two-bedroom units. These are 2-story units, approximately 980 square feet of livable space in each unit, along with the attached 1-car garage, and then 200 square feet of private open space between a ground floor patio and an upstairs balcony. The project, in addition to approval of the development permit, is requesting, or subsequent to that, is requesting the approval of a density bonus pursuant to the amenities bonus provision. As it is with the lot size of the existing property, the applicant would be able to construct just over 5 units. They're requesting 6 pursuant to the 15% increase. Specific for the amenities bonus provision, it does allow a 15% increase in the RM zone with any combination of a number of features, including but not limited to upscale architectural features, additional on-site landscaping, additional usable open space, and attached garages, all of which the project is providing. Additionally, through the variance, they're requesting a reduction in the side yard setback. As it's designed, it would require a 15-foot side yard setback on the south side of the property. They are providing 7. And additionally, a transfer of the private open space requirement. Multifamily residential development does require either 300 square feet or 25% of the livable space as private open space. The project as designed is providing approximately 18%, just over 18%. The remainder of that they're proposing to provide within the common open space. The project site, as noted, between 34th and 35th Street, fronting both E Street and Stoddard on the east side. You can see it's within an existing residential neighborhood, populated both by single-family development, more primarily on the east side, and some single-family and multifamily on the west side across E Street. This is the existing site looking eastward from E Street. You can see it is a through lot between E and Stoddard, currently undeveloped. And then the same from Stoddard looking the other direction. The site, as it's been designed, would be comprised of 2 semi-attached buildings, 3 units in each building, both fronting E and Stoddard, with a large common open space area in the center, along with the refuse and some guest and the guest parking spaces. There'd be access both from E and Stoddard with a through drive aisle that also allows direct access to the private garages. First floor of each unit, and this is 3 separate units combined, would be 1 bedroom, patio area, the garage, and then restroom and stairwell. The upstairs would be living area, dining, and kitchen.
one additional bedroom and bath, and then the balcony. The elevations for the proposed buildings, you can see 2-story units, garages lower level, patio and balcony stacked on each other on the adjacent to the garages. The other elevations, the way the project's been designed, the 2 buildings would be mirrored. So this primary elevation, which does have one of the units fronting the street, would front both E and Stoddard. And with that, I will say we did receive 3 letters from some of the neighbors earlier this afternoon. Those have all been provided. Physical copies have been provided to everyone. With that, I'm here to answer any questions. We do have the applicant here as well. And our recommendation this evening is that we do adopt Resolution 2019-042, finding the project categorically exempt for new construction of small structures and approving the development permit and variance based off the findings of fact and subject to the conditions.
Travis, would you mind putting the site plan back up, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry,
sorry, I do need to, I know what I forgot to say.
Oh, you didn't forget anything. I just wanted to...
I will just want to show on the site plan. The request, the primary request under the variance for the side yard setback, the reasoning on this site, the lot as it exists is approximately 66 feet wide. As the buildings are designed to include both the garages and bedroom on lower level, the necessary size to meet the minimum dimensions for those improvements, and then the drive aisle that's necessary due to the depth of the lot for emergency services does require that the building is set off to the side. Given the depth of the buildings, which are approximately 70 feet in total each, our code requirements would impose a 15-foot setback on both sides. This side more than meets it. They're approximately 25 feet. This side, as it's designed, is between 5 and 7 on the first and second floors. So they are requesting the variance for a deviation on the southern setback. Yes.
Could you please put the previous slide for this?
Yes.
Previous slide? Okay. This is the empty lot that these units are going to be built there?
This is the lot that's being proposed on, yes.
These houses here are all single-story? And the units are going to be double-story?
That is what is proposed, yes.
The setback, are we saying that the property or the wall or whatever is going to be up closer to these residents' homes?
As it would be, let me jump to the aerial. I think that might show it a little bit
Meaning
better.
it would be closer. Is that a yes?
Yes. On the southern side, the residences on the northern side would front the drive aisle, so those would not be impacted by this request. The one house fronting E Street, which is on the right-hand side here, the building would be located closer to that. What I do want to point out, any single-family development as well, were constructed on this lot, which the code does allow, could also be constructed at 2 stories and would only require a minimum 5-foot setback per the code standard. So what is being requested is consistent with other requirements for similar developments on the site. It's just the nature of the multifamily development standards do require a bigger setback the longer the building
Because
gets.
they're bigger buildings.
Yeah.
It's bigger units, a 2-story and so forth, and so you're going to be looking into your backyard and so forth. And
As I'm saying, if someone were to come in and propose a single-family development on this lot, which they would be entitled to by right, they would also be able to construct at 5 feet off the property line up to 2.5 stories with no additional review, no request. It would be a direct submittal into building and safety. So what is being proposed is not unsimilar to what could be built on the site otherwise.
Are any of the individuals who wrote these letters here tonight?
I don't believe so. I know one of them was mailed in. One of the residents that emailed it did contact me and say that they weren't able to make it, so we did offer the option for them to email it.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak? Because there is a statement here saying that it would negatively affect the surrounding single-family home property values, and et cetera, et cetera.
I'm Mr. Giles. I live at
Could you please come?
Northeast Street.
I actually want to open public hearing at this point. If you'd like to state your name one more time and your address for public.
3469 Northeast Street, just north of their project. And they'll be looking down in my throat from 2 stories up. My neighbor isn't there. He's not happy, and I'm not happy with it. Because if they build it up, you're right there and right down. And we have lots of problems with the multi-family homes in the lots, the apartment buildings across. We just got them straightened out with a lot of help from the neighbors for gang activity that were growing in the apartments on the corner. So I just got back from the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix the other day, so I didn't have time to get any of the information. My group of living partner told me about it. I had to be there for heart problems. They had to put pacemakers in to make me keep ticking. And I've lived in San Bernardino since 1946, so I'm quite familiar with the area and the people in it. And I think this is a lousy project to cram 6 of them on that lot. I don't know how they're going to do it without people reaching out windows, shaking hands next door. So that's all I got to say. And the other people I've talked to aren't in favor of it either. But apparently nobody. If I'd have known about it and been here earlier, I'd have been out raising all the neighbors up to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Are these rental units?
I believe that is what is being proposed.
My name is Edward Islas. I'm owner and representative. This is Jesse Carrillo, architect for the project. Appreciate the comments. I think one of the things that we were looking at, and we're trying to be very conscious about the neighbors and the neighborhoods. Originally, we were looking at putting 5 2-story buildings by right, which is allowed. We didn't think the project was well suited for the area, so we came up with this design, and we felt that it was not an overbuilt project that would compromise the area, and at the same time bring value to the properties and the adjacent properties. The way it sits right now, it's an empty lot. I'm actually surprised because I was speaking with Mrs. Guerrero, and she was telling me that she was very upset at her neighbors because they were using the lot as a ATV, have free-for-all right there, and she said she was constantly calling the police to help temper that. So I'm actually surprised with some of the comments, but I do appreciate them at this point.
And if I could add, if I could add to this, so we did, as obviously designing the project, we did take into consideration the neighbors and also the height difference between the 2-story and 1-story. The reason why it's designed with the buildings being more towards the south rather than the north is because the bedrooms are actually on the south side, which fronts or would kind of overlook the neighbor's garage. So we took that into consideration, trying to keep some privacy between the 2 structures. Obviously on the north side, because we do have that bigger setback distance, that's also facing the neighbor's garage areas. So we did, in designing the buildings, we did take that into consideration. But again, it's going to be a quality product. So as you can see by the rendering, I don't know if you guys can pull that up. Again, it's trying to do something that's going to attract people who are going to rent this type of product or apartment that are going to appreciate quality and design. So, and they are for rental. or they will be for rental.
These are rental units?
Yes.
Will they be market rate units, or will they be Section 8 or
They'll be market rate units.
market rate units? Okay.
And we'll be trying to push above market rates.
And the reason also behind the quality type of product, based on the transit overlay that's within this corridor, it's trying to promote people to use public transportation, which is also gearing towards different types of kind of people who are looking to have that kind of mode of transportation, which is going to have, we would think it's be people who have these types of jobs that are, having to commute, so maybe like a hospital or university jobs, that this would potentially try to attract that kind of renter. So trying to bring in a mix or a diversity of renters in the area.
Tell me again, what is the nearest cross street to 3459 Northeast Street? Where exactly? Marshall. I'm sorry, what?
Between Marshall and then where E Street goes around the hill and becomes Kendall, south of the old Castaway.
Yes, talk about, these are apartments. These are what you're calling apartments. The site plan is a little bit hard to follow. Dealing with parking, is there parking besides the one-car garage?
Correct. We're providing one car garage for the unit, and then we're adding 2 guest parking on site.
Guest parking.
Correct.
So, in the past, the projects have been before us before, required a parking per bedroom. And so there's only one garage parking per unit.
And that's based on the...
If I may answer that, as was noted, this project, and I apologize, I didn't clarify that earlier. This project is located in the transit overlay because of the bus line and the station that's just a couple blocks south at Marshall and E Street. The parking requirements for the transit overlay for the residential medium zoning district, which is where this is located, do put a flat requirement of 1 space per unit on the property. It's different requirements than what's in the code in general, where you're absolutely correct. It does traditionally park based off bedroom count. But as it is designed, they are required 1 space per unit. They then are required 1 guest space for every 5 units. So the 2 and the 6 single-car garages do meet the requirement.
Is there parking in front of the garages?
No, I apologize. Looks like the remote died just a little bit here. Yes, back on the site plan. No, everything just north of the buildings is just the drive aisle, the through drive aisle going from E to Stoddard. That accesses directly the 1-car garages, and then you see, and I apologize, I can't gesture to it anymore. Just to the right of the trash enclosure that's centered on the site, there are the 2 guest parking spaces.
So, additional parking, are you going to park on the street?
I couldn't speculate where any guests would park for the site.
Yes.
As it is, as I said, as it is designed on property, it does meet all applicable standards for parking.
Yeah, I mean, I almost can't imagine the garages actually will be filled with everything else other than cars. And the fire department is okay with the access?
That's correct, yes. As a part of the review on this, fire did look at it, and they have signed off on the through access for the site.
Is there separate utilities to each unit?
There is, yes.
So, again, the 7-foot setback, point that out again.
I apologize, the pointer. I think
Oh,
the battery
it's
died
killed.
on it. So on the bottom hand side, you see, yes. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, on the buildings themselves are the darker gray blocks on the left and right hand sides of the site. Approximately where the little black arrows are on the south side,
Okay.
that is the setback that would be reduced to 7 feet.
And there is, I'm assuming, a 6-foot block wall there?
That's correct. On both sides of the site.
Thank you.
Yes. Since these are rental units, are you going to have a property manager on site, or what security features? Because I'm reading the letters, and maybe I'm reading in between the lines, but it was mentioned by the resident here about a lot of problems that they had with another apartment complex, gangs and other things, and there's mention of not adequate lighting and et cetera, et cetera. And you said you spoke with Ms. Guerrero. What did you resolve, other than you just said that she complained about some other things? What did you resolve in terms of what her concerns were?
In essence, I didn't really, this wasn't even raised as a concern when we were speaking. So
So you don't know, because it is in her letter, and
It
I
is,
think you had the letter beforehand.
No, I just got the letter today.
Oh, okay.
But in short, this wasn't part of the conversation. I didn't know that this was even a concern of hers.
Mm-hmm.
The only concern that she had was her neighbor on East Street in front of her, that they're renters and that they were using ATVs to use a lot as a off-roading location.
Okay. So I did ask, since it's rental, are you going to have a property manager, or how?
Correct. We are vetting a few property management companies that we should have in online when the project is fully built.
Mm-hmm.
And and we're going after a good property management company. Of course, we're investing a lot of money on this project. And we're not going to allow it to just, fall apart.
Okay. And I have a question for the resident. I don't know if you will come up again. Yes. You said you lived there a lot of years. May I ask you, what is the square footage of your home or property? What is the square footage of your home or property? How big are the homes there?
1,200 square feet.
Okay.
Okay.
Like mine.
The ATV is the neighbor across the street that plows the lot, and a tractor.
Commissioner, you want to speak on that?
I have a question. How many bedrooms per unit again? Can you show the floor plan? I forgot.
Yes. Sorry,
Yeah,
Stephanie? Can we skip to the floor plan? Sorry. Yes, each unit, no, go back 3 slides.
Okay.
One more. There we go. Each unit would be 2 bedrooms. You can see what's shown on this floor plan are the 3 attached units in each building. You see, you have just looking at, as an example at the one on the right, you have the 1-car garage. Immediately below that, you have the single bedroom. And then on the upper left is the patio area, and then the washroom, laundry, and then the stairwell to the 2nd floor. The 2nd bedroom is located on the 2nd story. Along with the kitchen, living, and dining areas, yes.
What is the square foot for the rental units, one unit?
Each unit is approximately 980 square feet of livable space, in addition to the garage and the patio areas. Or that's separate from the garage and the patio areas. The garage is just over 200, and the patio and balcony comprise about 200 each, or 200 in total.
Will you implement any security measures on this rental property?
One thing, and I did want to add it based off Commissioner Lopez's comment, in addition to what the applicant mentioned, the site itself is also fully gated as designed on both the pedestrian access along the south side of the building and the vehicular access on the drive aisle.
This rental unit is going to be surrounded by residential property, residential homes that are
That's correct.
single-story,
Mhm.
average 1,200 square feet plus whatever yardage they have.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
And the parking that the gentleman was talking, it stops, public parking on the street stops right at their lot. They park on the street,
Madam Chair.
about once every month.
Oh, sir, if you actually wanted to speak, you would actually have to come to the podium. Yes? Thank you.
So through the chair.
Yes.
Yes, I have one question.
Yes.
We are being asked to allow the request is to allow the density bonus of 1 unit.
Mhm.
So do I understand correctly that under the existing ordinance, there'd be 5 units allowed, but there's a bonus unit?
Yes, based off the lot size, which is just under 19,000 square feet, and the density for the property, which is 12 units per acre, by right, they would be able to construct approximately 5.1 units, which we would round down to 5 units for the site. There is an amenities bonus provision, as noted, for specific improvements, including additional open space, which, based off the size of this multifamily proposal, it does not require any open space. The upgraded architecture, which they have included, and then the attached garages, which for multifamily are not always included most of the time, and with some of the surrounding developments, you often see carports. With those, they can be afforded up to a 15% density bonus, which, doing the math, would get them to 5.84 units, which we would typically round to 6. So that is how we got to the proposal today.
Okay, thank you. When we, years back, when we saw this transit system go in
Mhm.
up and down East Street,
Mhm.
I remember the ordinance being changed to this higher density type housing.
Mhm.
So this is this is part of the impact of that?
No, the bonus provision that they're requesting was previously existing in the code. The primary impacts from the transit overlay for this property, nothing significant to do with the density. The overlay, as it's written, just refers to the existing densities for the base zoning on any given property. What they've had to change based off that requirement is along East Street, along Stoddard, the building is designed still at a 25-foot setback to be consistent with the adjacent single-family residences. Along East Street, it's designed at a 15-foot because this section of East Street, with its proximity to the transit station, does impose a maximum setback, and that maximum is 15 feet. We still did set it back, that amount, just to provide some, semblance of, consistency with the adjacent units, but that is as far back as they would be allowed to put it. The other item that changed because of the transit overlay was that parking reduction, as I noted with Commissioner Wolbert's comment earlier, which did allow them to do just 1 enclosed parking space per unit instead of 1 per bedroom.
Thank you. I do have a concern for the neighbors up there.
Mhm.
I am familiar with the problems that have been occurring up there. So, yeah, I can see where their concerns and feelings are for this, to fill that piece of property up with all this compacted housing. I'm sure it's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Commissioners, I'd like to add my 2 cents, if I may, on the project. The application was submitted in December of last year, and this is probably maybe the 4th or 5th variation of the site plan that we worked with the applicant on. It really became, as we progressed, an architectural design kind of exercise, if you will. This isn't a typical location where you have a regular lot that we have somewhere else in our city. There were some constraints to that, maybe not constraints, but some regulations that affected it. As indicated, it's within the transit overlay, which so basically we took the property and we started basically drawing lines where you can and can't build, kind of a thing. So it being in the transit overlay, so we knew we had to strike it 15 feet along East Street, along the frontage. So your building had to be up to that point. You couldn't set it back any further or any closer. On the back side, it's still, it's not within the overlay, so that's where we allow for a larger setback. That's where you see a semblance of kind of a front yard on Stoddard, I believe, the back side. The other thing that we had to address was fire access because of the depth of the lot. Fire department requires a few choices. If you have a dead end, you need to either provide a hammerhead of some sort so the fire truck can turn around, or you can provide a fire hydrant on site. Or in this particular case, situation, this was a through lot, so they can actually drive the engine through. Now, what the fire department requires is a 24-foot minimum drive aisle, fire lane, if you will, so they can drive through. And so that's so basically what we did. We started with like I said, the 15 on one side, the 20 on the other side, 24 feet along the top for the fire access. What we had remaining on the lower part of the site plan, if you will, was what can be the start of your buildable area. So then the next line is the 15-foot setback for a two-story building. So it essentially would leave maybe a 20-foot strip of buildable area across the center of the property. So the alternative for that is that the applicant develop, I believe it would be 4 units. If he built 4 units, that's by right. It would never come to you. Okay, that would just so there could be four separate resident structures, 2 stories in height. We would have no ability to restrict window locations or those kinds of things. It would be developed just as a straight multifamily residential project. The number of 5 units jumps it up to planning commission approval kind of a thing. So again, in trying to go through some renditions of the site plan, it's like, well, okay, how can we prepare something that we could, as staff, support and bring forward to the planning commission? Our preference is to work with applicants and come to a project that we believe is a positive solution. And that's where I think that we came. Our setback, where it's stepped back. The second floor is stepped back a little bit. There's a tier there. So again, we're trying to work. As it related to the so it's in the transit overlay. It limits us to 1 parking stall or a garage per unit. So as much as we'd like to require 2-car garage for each one, we can't because our code doesn't allow that. Okay, and so those are some of the factors that came in. We talked about amenities for the density bonus. It's like, well, okay, if we're going to do this or that, if we're trying to achieve a project that we think is a quality design for the city, not just the area, but the city that can serve as an example, if you will. The temptation is like, well, we require a multifamily development requires 200 and some odd private patio kind of a thing, and so you end up with these little areas that how usable are they, And so what we encourage the applicant. So on the first level, they have these larger, almost 200 square foot, I believe, enclosed private patio for each one. And we said, well, you know what? Use that extra 80 square feet or whatever to give us an open setting, where it's more open space, where it becomes usable to the residents of that development and provides an aesthetic value to that. At least that was our intent. And so again, so we visited the site a couple of times, and yes, there was some. We did notice that the mixture of the residential projects, and it's like, well, okay, there are some single-family residences here, but then there are also some multifamily that's in the area too. And so with all projects, it is our hope that if we do something that can serve as an example, then maybe that's something that could be encouraged in other locations as well, if the commission is inclined to support this kind of approach. So that's kind of how we got here. Again, it was an evolution. It was an architectural exercise, design charrette, if you will, that got us here. If you, depending on what your opinion is, if you think that there's some need to go back to the drawing board, if you will, That's one option, but recognize the constraints that we have to the site, fire access, certain parking limitations that we cannot exceed, and the width of the existing lot. You know, are the units with the amenities and how the site's developed, is that something that can be supported? Through our recommendation, I believe that it can, but I'll leave it to you. And I just wanted to speak on this. I know we've been working for a while, and with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
So they could have 5 units, and it would still be under the Planning Commission and the city's oversight?
Not 5 if it was 4.
For 5, yes.
5, they'd have to come back anyway.
Okay. Because right now the proposal is for 6 units.
So if they came back with, so let me take a step back. So the code, when we did the math, you know, you take the lot size divided by the density, you come up with 5 units. That's what the code allows. Okay, and 5 units automatically comes to the Planning Commission. Okay, so you would have seen this as a 5-unit project, kind of a thing, and so it was one of those. Well, okay, if we lopped off one of those units, it really wouldn't change anything. I mean, you know, we could say, well, okay, instead of the 6 units, let's take off the one on the end off of Stoddard Street, you know, kind of a thing. And so, you know, there's still the other restrictions. If he decided to just redesign the whole thing and say, well, you know what, I don't want to go back to the Planning Commission, I'll just do 4 units and we'll never come back. You know, and so that's kind of where that's at. So the 5th unit kicks it up to the commission level.
I see.
And so the variance is only because of the side yard setback, because the code requires for a 2-story structure to be 15 feet from the side yard.
Well, I think one of the reasons for either a 5th or a 6th is because it's, as the gentleman said, we've already put in a lot of money in this development. So a 5th or a 6th unit is, the expectation is to recover what you've put on and make some more. That would make sense to me. But if they went from 6 to 5, would that not create some of these additional parking spaces that people are expressing concern about traffic on the street or parking on the street?
Certainly, there's a discretion of the Planning Commission, but as indicated within the transit overlay, we you know, we're limited to 1 stall per unit. The intent of the overlay is to encourage people to get out of their cars, because you know you have the you know the bus route there, you have the station, you know, the bus stops, and so you know, the thinking is that if we don't allow you to have parked cars on your property, that you'll be using the transit system, whether or not that works. But again, it's the discretion of the Planning Commission. If your desire is to provide for more on-site parking, eliminate a unit or whatever it is that you want to do, that's the purpose of a discretionary action.
Oscar, did you say that there was going to be, the community is gated? I don't mean Oscar, I mean
That's
Oliver.
okay.
I believe I did mention that.
Yes, there will be
As
gates.
I'll show you on the rendering for the project. You can see on here, and I don't know, it may be easier on the larger screen. The front yard area in front of the end unit is fenced in. There is a man gate on the southern side, adjacent to that walkway, and then the drive aisle on the north side is fully gated as well, with 6-foot fencing all around the site.
And where you're asking for the variance, is that going to be gated like what I see on the
Yes,
photo? Is it going to be cinder
That
block
is,
or
if
whatever?
you see all the way on the right-hand side of the
Mhm.
image, this gate over here, that is where that side yard reduction is being requested. So the site is
Is it
full.
going to be cinder block, or is it going to be gated
It would
like
be
with
block on
slats?
the north and south sides, abutting the residences. The ends where the drive entry is and the manned entry, that would all be open work fencing.
Yes, Commissioner. So you have,
go ahead.
so sorry. Thank you, sorry. The front yard, did you say you're going to have 6 feet high fence?
No, you can see on the rendering, the 6-foot fencing starts back at the building setback. It gets a little bit dark up here. I apologize. It's a little harder to see. But you have 6 foot along the drive gate, 6 foot running along to the edge of the building, and then 6 foot along the man gate on the side. The front yard areas is just at a 3 foot limit enclosing the little private yard. And that would be true on both frontages of the site.
And in terms of open space on this property, earlier in your slide, it says 18.4% transfer of open space and the common open space.
No, what? Sorry, I
Would
can
that
clarify.
be- Yeah.
So as our code requires, common open space is only required for multifamily development units when you get to 12 units or more. So officially, as this project is proposed, being 6 units, any common open space is above and beyond the requirement, as none is officially required. What they're requesting as far as the transfer of the open space would be, and I'm sorry, I can jump to the slides. You have the private patio on the bottom of each unit. It's approximately 150 square feet, 140 to 150. And then on the upper level, you have a 50 to 60 square foot balcony adjacent to the living area. That gives them a total of 200 square feet of private open space. As the code requires, they would have to provide 25% of the living area, which would be 245 square feet. So they have designed it to provide just under the 19% of the requirement, with approximately 6% of that transferred to the common open space that is being provided in excess of the requirement. I apologize if that's a little confusing. If I said that too quick, please let me know.
And what will be the exterior finish of the building?
I believe, and I tried reading it on the elevations after the previous project, I believe it does say stucco finish. Sorry, I can bring it up on here. Is that correct? Yeah.
The finish is not going to get kind of
Oh, if you could come up to the podium. Yes.
What we're proposing is what we're proposing is what we call a 2030 finish. It's a smoother finish than your regular rough textured finish in order to give it a nice Mediterranean feel as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wolbert?
That was part of the question I had about that. What can you explain open space? Can you explain what kind of landscaping is going to be around with that limited area?
We actually have, it's a little bit more than just a limited area. I'm sorry, I forgot to hit the mic. So along the frontages, you have the width of the lot with the exception of the drive aisle, which would be, the drive aisle is also proposed as decorative pavers. You have landscaped area up here with 2 trees. You have the larger landscaped area in the back side because of the 25-foot setback, so there's an additional 10 feet of depth here. And then the entire middle third of the site, with the exception of the drive aisle and the 2 parking spaces, is all fully landscaped. As of right now, we don't have a conceptual plan that specifically speaks to the planting types. I believe we had discussed that just a little bit, and I apologize, I don't have my notes on what type of landscaping was being proposed. Do we have any, yeah, if you may.
The idea would be that for the open space and front yards for both buildings, it would be something that's inviting, that's actually usable. Again, it's a common space for all the residents, so it'd be a combination of turf where the kids, if they do have kids, can play around. Or like we're showing, we also have some barbecue areas where we have benches, outdoor benches, where they could use that outdoor space. So the idea would be that it's usable.
Could I see the elevation? I believe it's the south elevation that's going to be facing the neighbors, the 7-foot setback area.
The south elevation would be this one on the lower half of the screen.
Okay, but that does not have the wall that is coming there.
Yeah, the walls are omitted from the elevations so that we can just see what the building itself would look like. But it would be a typical, decorative block, 6-foot wall, as we've seen on our other projects.
So there would be a walkway between the wall and this back door?
That's correct. And I can go back, if I can reference the site plan. Just because of the scale of the drawing, I apologize, it has to get a little small. But this darker line here would be the wall, and then the walkway would be this portion between the building and the wall.
Thank you.
And your floor-to-floor height is 10 feet? Okay, thank you.
Any further comments on this item? If not, I will actually close public hearing for item number 6.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 6.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Aye. Motion does not pass. Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, just for the record, can you ask for any abstentions?
Is there any abstentions to this decision?
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 7, if we could have the staff report.
Commissioners, item number 7 involves extension of time 1907 and amendment to conditions 19-04. This is the 5th request for the extension for the project. This is for tentative tract map 17367 to subdivide 65 acres into 66 single-family residential homes, and it also involves conditional use permit 05-01 because part of the project is within the 15%. There's a 15% or greater slope in the area. It requires a conditional use permit for the hillside management overlay. The property is located on the north side of West Vermont Avenue, or Drive, between Magnolia and Chestnut. It's within the residential low area. This is an aerial of the site showing the property. And this is the map that's been approved. Again, the homes would be up in this area. This middle portion here, this donut hole, belongs to the city. It's a reservoir area, so that's the remainder portion. There's also lots B in this other area. That's the remainder lot. These will not be developed, so the subdivision is only in here. This item also involves amendment to conditions. As you recall, the direction of the City Council is to replace landscape maintenance districts with community facilities districts. So that's the amendment to the conditions that we are modifying. Again, this was the 5th request for this project, and that concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Our recommendation that this item be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. I hereby open public hearing for item number 7. If anyone wishes to speak. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this? Commissioner Wolbert?
When do you think they're going to build on this? We've got, literally, I think just looking back on the past, several hundred acres that have come to us for extensions, and some of them have been extended for like 8 years. Are we going to give extensions consistently? Or are we going to put the pedal to the metal and say, you got to build?
I concur with that. It's this one has been, I mean, it began, I think the first extension was in May 2006. Is that accurate?
That's when it was
Also?
approved,
That's when
originally
it was
approved.
approved originally?
And
Okay.
there's been with because there's been slowdown in housing development and what have you, the state legislature has adopted bills, either assembly bill or Senate bills to automatically extend maps. So that's why some of sometimes it's two-year increments, kind of a thing. And so that's how we've gotten this far, and some of the other extensions that have not come before you. There have been 4 previously approved by the Planning Commission, and again, this is the 5th one. There, as you indicated, there's a lot of maps that were approved all in that time, around the 2005 6 period. There is a large area of the Vertimont community, or up in that section, where there's a water service matter that they're trying to resolve with all the developers and subdividers up there, that they're working through with the water department on that. And so that's one of the things that they are trying to resolve. And again, we're as anxious as anyone else to get those projects underway. Again, this is the map's due to expire, so they're just making that request.
Okay. How many more extensions does this property allow?
It would,
Or the city allow for this?
provided, should the commission be inclined to approve this one, you get a total of 6. Total of 6. Now, I will say that the applicant had requested a 2-year extension. If you recall it, don't look at me, I said the applicant. In their justification letter, in their application, they did request 2 years. And for that reason, I believe, so they could resolve some of the infrastructure matters that need to be addressed there. Our recommendation was for 1 year.
Any other comments from the commission?
Well, I agree with the commissioners. We'd like to see these projects come together and get started. They've been hanging out there for a long time, and personally, I believe the iron is pretty hot right now. I think that's a good market to be building. These conditions that they're trying to meet or change, are these within the city? Are they working with the city on these conditions, or?
Now, which conditions are you referring to?
Well, they're asking for an extension because of some changes in the conditions, right?
No, so there's 2 things. The amendment to conditions that are before you only relates to the community facilities districts that we're looking to create, to substitute and replace the landscape maintenance district. So that's the only thing. So the conditions as it relates to infrastructure and all that kind of stuff is not part of this action.
Okay.
What they're saying is they need the extension to continue to resolve those matters.
Commissioner Wolbert?
I read an article recently in the LA Times, and it sounds like Sacramento is putting pressure on all cities to build. They're talking about requirements, or they're reducing the numbers. While we're not, so we're allowing people not to build. Well, Sacramento or sources are going to force cities to build. Or build smaller houses, or to resolve the housing crunch. Do we have any liability of being forced to build this land out?
If I may, so the state, through the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, they work with the local regional council of governments. We're in the SCAG region, Southern California Council of Governments, and so you may have heard the term RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment. Through that, and it's actually state law, and it requires a city to adopt a housing element for a 7-year period. What that housing element does is it identifies, well, let me take a step back. The state tells you, through SCAG in this particular situation, how many units need to be developed within the region, and then it's then determined city by city how much each city should provide new housing. And so in our housing element, and don't ask me how many the city of San Bernardino has to provide, I almost said Southgate, San Bernardino, but it gives us a number. And every year we need to report, so I think ours is like 800 and some odd units, I'm guessing, but I think it's somewhere around there. And we need to report every year how many have been constructed in the city. And it gives you by categories, how many were single-family residential, multifamily, how many do we believe were targeted for low income, very low income, and moderate. So there's an intricate table that we need to fill out and submit to the state. That's our report card that we submit to them. And so what happens is, because of the slowdown, whatever you want to call it, there's not been the development of housing to keep up with the demand as the state has identified. And so what they're asking, or I don't want to use the word force, but what you're hearing is, the cities need to do more to encourage residential development. What are the impediments that the city is imposing? And so what we do is when we do our housing elements, we identify, okay, this is all we can do. These are open areas, and we get creative, if you will, where, let's say, earlier we talked about the transit overlay. So we said, well, okay, our code would allow only, we were saying 4 or 5 units for these properties, along the transit corridor. But we're getting creative. We're going to allow for transit housing, which is a higher density, in order to achieve our target number of homes, kind of a thing. Mixed-use projects, you hear those, and so sometimes we get those projects, sometimes we don't. And so when we don't approve new housing developments, or a variety of type, and we always hear the question, and this is a statewide thing, it's like, well, okay, who are going to be the residents? Are they going to be low income? Is it going to be Section 8? Is it going to be at market rate? Those kinds of things. Well, while we want to be aware of those items, sometimes it helps us. And so when you talk about the liability, there isn't sanctions, or there isn't, where the city is going to be penalized or fined if you don't meet your target URENA number. Okay, but when there's opportunities for funding, for grants, and those kinds of things, the first thing they do is, where are you on your housing element? One, do you have a certified housing element that the state has approved and certified, that the council first has adopted, and that the state has certified? And then two, how are you doing? Well, you said you were going to build 800, 900, 1,000 homes. We're in the 5th year of that, and you've only built 20. I'm exaggerating. Or you only built 100. We'll take your application, we'll put it over here, and we'll look at the cities that are closer to their target. Those that comply, those that say we're certified and we're spot on with housing development, you get extra points for that. And I've been in other jurisdictions where the whole housing element or compliance or non-compliance with RENA has either impacted us or has helped us. Luckily, our housing element has been certified. It's good through 2020. We're in the process of updating this year's annual reporting. We'll see how we do, but we've been doing okay in the previous years, and so it's something that we work on, and so. When we talk about, residential developments, multifamily, sometimes, it's viewed a certain way, but those multifamily developments help us, and so our goal is that when there is a multifamily project, to get the best quality project that we can. I think we've had some recent examples. I think that there was one on Waterman and Rear that I believe that I think was 80 some odd units that we approved earlier in the year. That was a nice project. And we worked, talk about a charrette. Mr. Musino was the applicant on that particular project, and there were some constraints. There was a fault line, all of this stuff that was there. We came up with a fantastic project. So we get credit for that, you know. And so the goal is that serves as an example of other projects that we do. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of, we are mindful, and as projects are, you know, come through the process and they're approved or whatever the case is, ultimately built, you know. And so what we will do in our annual report is we'll reiterate how many tracks have been approved, how many homes are involved. We'll attach an exhibit to show where they are, and then we'll show the documentation that'll say, but for, you know, water supply or whatever, these things would be built. You know, whatever the case is. And so, you know, where we can demonstrate to the state that yes, we've approved projects, but that's only our part of the equation, you know, kind of a thing.
But you, excuse me, we're totally unlike Los Angeles. They've got a land shortage, basically. We don't have a land shortage, and you know, and no one's taking it, and no one's using it, is what it looks like. And I can see like this apartment project that just came in front of us is cramming a lot into a small area. Well, in my opinion, I don't think we need to. We've got plenty of land to build on and approved. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Commissioner Wolbert, I feel it incumbent upon me to advise the commission, inform the commission that actually the governor has sued the city of Huntington Beach over failing, you know, to do as much as the administration claims it should. And in response, the city of Huntington Beach has launched several lawsuits against the state in response, saying that the law itself is an impermissible incursion upon local rule. Both of those lawsuits on both sides are ongoing.
Yeah, if they impose what article or paragraph 27, I think it was, and they put the this has actually nothing to do with us. But I brought up what I thought we might be under. We don't need to discuss Huntington. That's all right. Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to speak on this item, both public or other commissioners? If I'm reading this correctly, your recommendation is in place of the 2 years that they're asking is 1 year, correct? That's your recommendation?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the applicant is not here?
No, he's not.
No, okay. All right. Then I will close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 7.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. All against? Motion passed. Proceeding on to item number 8. If we could get the staff report on that.
Thank you, Chair. Let me see. All right, it works this time. Item number 8 this evening is subdivision 17-08. This is for tentative tract map 20150. This is a proposed 84-lot single-family residential subdivision. It's located entirely within the residential low zoning district, and the project site is approximately, it's on the north side of what would be the intersection of West Vermont Drive and North Little League Drive. The proposal in front of us this evening is to subdivide a property just under 67 acres in size into 84 single-family residential lots with 3 additional lots for detention basins. The minimum lot size being proposed this evening is 9,755 square feet. The largest lot size, due to some of the topographical limitations, is just over 37,000, and the average lot size amongst all 84 would be approximately 12,700. The project, due to its size, was subject to an initial study, which did result in a mitigated negative declaration. There was an MMRP, Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, that was prepared as part of that to address the environmental impacts of the project. As a part of the development, there would be required that there's an extension of Little League Drive. This would be through another previously approved subdivision that's located immediately to the south of the project site this evening. And they would be required to do a developer-installed agreement through the Water Department for the future utility services for water and sewer. The project site, as noted, you can see Little League is the street kind of teeing into it. Verdamont would be the southern frontage of the site. Those two streets at this point do not exist currently. They would be part of the extensions for this track and the previous approved track. This is the aerial of the project site. You can see undeveloped, located primarily at the base of the foothill. The other subdivision, as noted, is approved for this area immediately to the south that would have Little League Drive running through the center of it. This is a photo of the current end of Little League Drive. The project site is off in the distance, a little ways up. What you're looking at immediately, and unfortunately it's as far as I could get, would be the subdivision immediately to the south, but you can see further up towards the base of the foothill. The overall project site, I said the entirety of the 67 acres wouldn't be developed. It would primarily be restricted to the southern half of the property. This right here running through the middle would be where Little League tees in, and then again Verdamont running the entire southern frontage. A blow up of the actual map itself, you can see as well Little League is this street that runs down here, Verdamont on the south side, and then one of the largest basins surrounded by the 84 lots. Our recommendation this evening is to adopt Resolution 2019-044. That would be adopting the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program along with the Mitigated Negative Declaration. Excuse me, that's a mouthful. And approving the subdivision for Track 20150 based off the findings and subject to the recommended conditions. I am here if there are any questions. I also have the applicant for the project if you do have any other questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I want to open public hearing for item number 8. If there is anyone wishing to speak. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. How many single residential units?
It would be a total of 84 single-family lots. But to clarify, this does not include any development approval. This is simply for the subdivision of the property. Any future development of the units would be required to come back through this body through a Type P development permit.
Can you repeat the total acreage again?
It's approximately 66.7, but as I was showing on this slide, I would say it's maybe about 2/3 of it that would actually be occupied by the subdivision itself. The remaining portion from here up would just be left as hillside. So they're probably only building out maybe just over 40 acres or so.
Oh, okay.
Is there any talks with Caltrans? Because to my understanding, most of that is actually going to exit through Palm. And I mean, it is close to the mountains, so I know there's fire hazards and having all those homes, I mean, residents having to filter out.
You're correct. The nearest freeway interchange would be Palm Avenue and the 215. This item, we did route to Caltrans as part of the public circulation of the environmental document, including the traffic study. Okay. And we did receive minimal feedback from Public Works, and I forget County Public Works and one other agency, but Caltrans did not provide any comments on the project.
Oh.
Yeah, just worrying about evacuation routes and everything. Let's see. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? If not, I will hereby close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So moving on to item number 9, if we could get the staff report for that. Hello again.
Could we take a 5-minute break, please?
Yes. If we can. Yeah, so if we could have a 5-minute break, we will recommence in 5 minutes. So, so we're back. If we could go on to item number 9, if we could get that
Okay.
staff report.
Thank you. Item number 9, I do want to clarify before we get too far into it. This is simply a study session item just to present something that is going to be coming to you hopefully next month. We're not requesting any action on this item this evening. What this is Development Code Amendment 1902. This is specifically for accessory dwelling units. The purpose of this is to implement standards that were adopted over the last couple years by the state. We are admittedly a little bit behind on getting into compliance with a couple of these items. Basic history on it, there were two bills that the Senate and Assembly adopted in 2006 towards the end, kind of establishing a lot of new standards for accessory dwelling units. And what these are the additional unit, your granny flat, in-law quarters, however other terms you may use, in addition to a single-family residence on one property. After that was adopted in October of the following year, there was some additional legislation that was passed that clarified a lot of these standards. Because a lot of these are new, there were places where cities and everyone were trying to figure out how to implement things. As a result of these adoptions, any existing local ordinance that we had, and we did have one for second dwelling units as we referred to them, was rendered immediately null and void if it did not comply fully with the new legislation. So what we have been implementing since the beginning of 2018 is the state standards. Typically that has worked fairly well. They are fairly prescriptive on what you can do, but there are a couple places for some clarification. And some places where they do leave minor discretion to the cities, and that's one item that we wanted to discuss this evening. So key changes that the 4 bills that were passed really put into place. The primary thing is that any accessory dwelling unit anywhere in our city or any other city is now a ministerial action completely. What that means, I would compare it mostly to a building permit. So you come in, you meet very specific standards, you would get the approval. There's no discretion. These types of items would never be something, as an example, that would come to this body where we would consider it. It's simply, here are established standards. Yes, you meet them. You are approved. Here's your permit. A couple things that they clarified and that are different than what we had in place already. And I will say most of what we had is actually fairly compliant. It's just a few minor points. As far as maximum unit size, our old standards for second dwelling units limited it to no more for attached units. That's something that's connected or integrated with the existing dwelling. We limited it to 30% of the primary dwelling. The new standards from the state increased that to 50% or a maximum of 1,200, whichever is smaller. For detached, they just put it at a standard of maximum of 1,200, although there is some room where we can look at regulating that otherwise, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. For minimum setbacks, one of the big things that they changed, anything that's attached just has to comply with the general setbacks for the house itself. It's part of that structure, so the general, your front yard, rear yard setbacks would apply. Anything detached, if it's converted from an existing structure, for an example, a detached garage, there are no setback requirements. So regardless of where it is in relation to the property, you can't require that the structure is moved over a couple feet if you thought it was too close. And then typically any additions to those types of structures would be limited just to 5 feet as opposed to any increased setback that may normally be required. The other the other major change that they made was in regards to the parking. Parking is now just capped at 1 space per unit for the accessory unit. That's separate from the parking that's required for the primary residence. Also, if these units, as I said, because many of them and many that have come into the city so far are conversions of existing garages, when that happens, the city used to require that that was replaced with another garage, as is the typical requirement for single-family dwellings. The new legislation restricts us from how we can require it be replaced, simply that we can. So as long as someone converts their 2-car garage, they still have to provide those 2 parking spaces on site, but they do not have to provide it in a garage or a carport. It can just be in the driveway or anywhere else on the site that is approved for parking. So any other improved surface. Also, with the accessory units that are converted from existing structures, no additional parking is required. That is one exemption that is built in. The only parking that would be required extra for these additional units is if it is new square footage being built onto the lot. And even that has some exemptions for when parking may be, the parking requirement may be eliminated. And those are if the property is within half mile of a public transit stop, as is defined in the state's code, within a historic district, part of an existing structure, as I mentioned, where on-street permits are required but they would not be provided, or if there's car share within 1 block of the property. I believe the only ones of those that would really have any impact in the city, in our city, would be if it's a converted existing structure or if it's within a transit stop, as we don't really have designated public or historic districts or do on-street parking permits here in the city. So the points of the standards that do allow us a little bit of flexibility, and I apologize if I'm jumping around too much, but the places where we do have a little bit of discretion still are primarily limited to the physical standards for the unit, as far as heights, setbacks, lot coverage, the typical things we would look at for the primary unit as well. What we are proposing, and I can run through the draft regulations that were provided as well. The key one that we want to do for the detached units, they are limited to 1,200 per the state's regulations. We would like to put the additional restriction on that it has to still be smaller than the primary unit. So we do have a number of houses in the city that are older, 800-900 square feet, 1,000, 1,100, anywhere in that range. We want to ensure that the accessory unit remains accessory on the property, and would, even if it can get up to the 1,200, it wouldn't ever be larger than the primary unit, so you don't have that imbalance. Additionally, there's no height restriction called out specifically for these units through the state's requirements. We do have existing requirements for all accessory structures in our code. That's typically garages, sheds. It previously applied to the second units and the granny flats, or the guest houses that we allowed. That's 16 feet. We're looking to keep that for these units as well. So any accessory that is detached only would be single story. If it was attached, the typical requirements for the house, the 2-story limitation, would apply still. And then the final is we do have the option to require owner occupancy of one of the units on the property. It can be either the primary or the accessory unit. We would like to put that into our standards. As a part of that, and to ensure that, we would require that a covenant be recorded on the property prior to pulling any permits for the construction. And that would kind of enumerate all of the standards for the accessory units, specifically the owner occupancy requirement. And with that, that's kind of the main points I think that we do have a little bit of flexibility on. I can run through some of the others. I think there might be a couple others in the ordinance or in the draft regulations, or can also open it up to any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Okay. It says ADU within historical district.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me understand or define the historical district with the city?
As I said, that's a line that comes directly, that list of exemptions for the parking, that's a line that just comes directly out of the state legislation.
Okay.
In our city, we don't have any established historic districts.
Okay.
So it's general language, but it's really not applicable to every jurisdiction.
Okay. Is that our intent to apply this in just throughout the city?
Yeah, this would be applied blanket citywide, only to, and it is in the language, I apologize, I don't have it on a slide. It is only applicable to any single-family or multifamily
Right.
zoning district.
Right.
Any residence, so any single-family residence that's located on either a single-family or multifamily zoned property would be allowed to construct an accessory unit as a by right action. It would require no entitlement. It would simply require building permits. Any house that happens to be in an old commercial or industrial area, like we have kind of southeast of the city here, where all the warehouses are going up, these standards would not apply to that because those are not located currently in a residential zoning district.
Second question I have is on-street permits required but not offered to ADU.
Yeah. Again, just as with the historic standards, that is a general exemption from the state. That's not something that would be applicable to the city. And I did consider leaving that off just because it does create some confusion since it's not something we offer. But to my knowledge, we don't have any neighborhoods within the city that actually have the enforced parking permits for the residents.
Okay, that's fine.
So that it's really, do we have?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
one.
One of my,
And when you
Chantal
don't-
did inform me. There is at least one over by Valley. So we would have that in there. But generally speaking, sorry, I'm not familiar with that area. But generally speaking, it would not apply to the majority of the city.
Yeah, when you don't put that permit up, they do give you a ticket even though it's your house. So,
Sorry, I
I'm
did
used
forget
to-
about
Not
that
that
area.
fun.
But that's why I brought Chantal.
Yes.
yeah, I live on K.
Yeah, I'm used to West LA and West Hollywood.
Yeah.
For the apartments, yeah. And a car share within one block of ADU, is this for the residents? Can you explain the car share?
I will be honest, I don't have a lot of additional information on that.
okay.
That is, again, one of the, just kind of the default exemptions from the state. That's not something that we really had any discretion on.
So it is in our intent to adopt this. This was adopted in 2018, you said?
Yes, the most recent state legislation was October of 2017.
here.
It became effective January of 2018. What we're looking to do is primarily just implement the standards as they're written, because that is how they are required. It's just those few areas where we do have some discretion on height limitations, size limitations, and setback requirements that we wanted to bring forward just to start to get everyone's thoughts on.
If I may, Commissioners, the intent for this evening, just kind of to give you an awareness that there is a state legislation that covers accessory dwelling units. And so from here, what we will do is we will prepare an ordinance, a draft ordinance, that mirrors the state legislation. Okay? And a lot of those items are already state mandated. There's no flexibility at all. As Travis indicated, there are some areas where the city does have some discretion, like you mentioned, unit heights and size and those kinds of things. So what you'll notice prior to our next meeting, the draft ordinance, what we will do is we will highlight in red or something those areas, or identify those areas where we have the discretion.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it may look like a menu kind of a thing. It's like, well, okay, height limitations. We'll say, well, this is what the state says.
Yeah.
But we will underline in red or whatever. This is what, if the commission is inclined, we could adopt this one. And so the goal at the next meeting would be to go through that draft ordinance, and then we can go through it page by page or section by section, have some dialogue, and at that point the commission can indicate, well, yes, we should limit it to, if they're detached, as an example, if they're detached, yes, a single story does make sense. We don't want to allow two-story detached accessory units, or maybe we do want to limit the size. As Travis indicated, that 1,200 square foot limitation, but it can't be bigger than the house, and we've been seeing that. And so, because we don't have an updated ordinance that addresses these units, we're regularly faced with people that come to the counter that want to build these, and right now we're limited by what our code says now, and that's one of the earlier pages that you saw on your attachment. And so really, like I said, when we share the draft with you, we'll be able to kind of go through it, and you'll be able to see where we can and can't pick and choose, if you will. And so we wanted to, at least as an introduction, show you and provide you with attachment B that kind of gives you those areas that we have some discretion or latitude, so you can kind of start thinking about that, and then we could maybe have a fruitful conversation at our next meeting with the draft.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver.
You're welcome.
I agree with everything he said. It's very well put.
I should have bought a lottery ticket.
Commissioners, do you have a comment as well?
Yes, I do. I was provided by Councilman Mulvihill the accessory dwelling unit moratorium dated December 20th, 18. I've gone through this, a little bit confusing at times. I would suggest that everybody on this commission get a copy of this before the next meeting. There's a lot of reading in it, a lot of confusion, but it may confuse the issues more or may clarify it. But this thing really goes into detail, history and why, and it's up to date. I think that I would recommend that everybody have a copy of it to go through it before our next meeting.
Yeah, I think that it is an excellent document. It does give a good primer for kind of where we got, or how we got where we are, and why we're putting these in place now. And that's something we do have, and it can work with Stephanie and have emailed out to all the commissioners. It's a little bit lengthy, I think, to print, but we can definitely send it as we did the packets, just prior to the next meeting.
It's very, very. It also goes into the junior type, which gives travel trailers.
Yeah, it does. There are, again, with the kind of the square footage flexibilities we have, the very limited flexibility, there are some options to do junior accessory units. As we were reviewing it, it's an option that was there. It wasn't something necessarily that you had to do. It didn't really seem to fit with what we were looking at bringing into the city here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
One question. In regards to number 10 on P of the second dwelling unit housing design standards, where it states the applicant for the second dwelling unit shall be the owner occupant of the subject property. Now, is that for the entire duration of the issuance of the permit of the property? So if like...
I will clarify, and I realize I didn't say this when I started talking. What was included in here, just the dual-sided first page, just kind of a brief overview, very similar to what was shown in the PowerPoint. The second item, the section P, those are the existing standards that we had in place. Those are now officially null and void, as I stated when the new legislation was adopted. Because this doesn't comply in full with the new requirements, it doesn't exist anymore.
So under the proposed guidance or guidelines or policy, you don't need to be an owner occupant to...
What we are recommending that we put in place as a requirement, because it does afford us the ability, is that the property does record a covenant on there prior to pulling building permits that the owner would utilize either the primary dwelling unit or the accessory unit as their primary residence. What that's meant to do is ensure that these are still, continue to be owner-occupied single-family residences, and we don't just end up with, an overabundance of two-unit rental properties throughout the city. We do know that is a concern, and we want to make sure, we can still maintain that character of, your typical single-family neighborhood, everybody's owning their house, with the inclusion of these extra units.
So under that covenant, would the owner of the property still be able to lease that second unit, or would
They would
it
be able to-
specifically just be?
Yeah, they would be able to rent the second unit, and it is called out in the proposed section on the final page, under letter D. So D number 1 talks about owner occupancy, says either the primary dwelling unit or the accessory. We wouldn't require one or the other. And then number 2, under transfer of unit, the restriction would be that the accessory unit, even though it could be addressed separately, metered separately, and it is officially legally a second unit on the property, it could not be sold separately. It's still located on the one parcel. Could not be sold or transferred, but you could rent out that unit.
I see. Okay, so it can't like be subdivided in the future
No,
or anything
we
like
wouldn't subdivide those
Okay.
these types of properties. To be honest, they'd never meet the standards for something like that, typically speaking. But they are intended to be, create an additional, rental property. We've had many people that have come in that have done that. We're all living within our means. We're all trying to get by and, trying to create a rental property so you can get some extra income. Some people are using them for family members or parents. It really kind of runs the range of things.
Right. And then also, I had another question with in regards to the square footage on the properties regarding
Yes.
the original dwelling. To my understanding, if the original dwelling is smaller,
Yes.
the second dwelling can't exceed that amount, no matter the circumstance of the existing first dwelling. Am I correct?
So that's where it gets a little complicated. It's probably an understatement as well. For the attached units, so both attached and detached, and we have to look at those separately. They could never be larger, and this is written into the state's requirements, never larger than 1,200 square feet. The attached units also have a subsequent restriction of no larger than 50% of the primary dwelling unit. So if it's a 2,000 square foot house, they could build 1,000 as an attached unit.
Right.
If it's a 3,000 square foot house, they'd still only be able to build that 1,200. They'd never be able to go above that. On the detached units, the only limitation that's spelled out clearly from the state is that they cannot exceed 1,200 square feet.
Right.
But there are some options, and it's one of the items, as Oliver mentioned, that we'll present in a more complete form. Kind of here are the few different routes we could take on this. The option is just leave it capped at 1,200 square feet, and however it fits, as long as it meets setbacks and coverage and separation of structures, so be it. We have the option potentially to limit it to a percentage of the primary unit, as is already done with the attached units. Or we also have the option to limit it to no larger than the main unit. That's something that we've been exploring. Depending on the property, different standards make more sense. Sometimes we have very large houses. You do want to limit them, to where it's a reasonable size. We have a lot of properties that are only 700 square feet or 800 square feet. So if we limited it percentage-wise, those may now be prohibitive. It's something we need to explore what's going to be the best solution to the majority of the properties in the city.
That makes sense, because one of my main concerns is that a large portion of the city of San Bernardino was designated as an opportunity zone. So in order for certain projects at certain parcels to qualify under the opportunity zone to receive those incentives, they have to have a certain amount of redevelopment or significant capital improvements done to the actual parcel. So by restricting the amount of square footage for the development or anything moving forward, my concern was that we would possibly be making the city of San Bernardino less competitive as a place for opportunity zones and further development for economic development.
I would say I'm still working through my education on the opportunity zones, but to my understanding, generally speaking, in our experience with the applicants that have come in thus far, these are primarily the homeowners that are looking to do something extra, I said, either for a rental property or for family. That's not the type of project that would typically be pursuing the credits as part of the opportunity zone designation. So I don't believe at this time that that's really something that would impact, one wouldn't impact the other, were we to look at restricting the square footage.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you.
Oliver, do you have a deadline as to this ordinance?
As soon as possible.
No, we don't. But our schedule, if I may, internally, is to bring this to the Planning Commission for consideration at the August meeting.
At the August meeting.
At the August meeting, and then with seeking a recommendation to forward it to the City Council.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at possibly a September, October date to present to the to council, depending on, other items.
That would be fine with me. I think the suggestion that was made regarding this, can we have that distributed to all of us to read? I think it cannot hurt for us to have background information. Because you are asking in your letter, because I know that today was a bit of a tutorial for us, but you are asking for comments. And when I'm fully informed, then I can make the comments and not use up so much time asking questions that maybe I can get from another source.
Yes, we can send that to all of you.
Yeah.
Again, the intent was just kind of an advance notice, if you will, that this is coming before you, so at least you can start thinking about it. Yes, we'll route that other information to you. You can start thinking about it. So when you receive your agenda package, next month, it'll start to make sense, a little bit. And if it becomes a matter that we'd like to continue that matter from the August meeting to September, that's certainly something that the commission could consider as well.
So we will have access to this. Stephanie, you'll send it to us.
Everyone else
the
but
packet
you,
and-
yes.
Everyone but me, okay.
We can go
Well,
ahead.
then you'll be hearing from nobody but me.
I'm kidding, of course, but yes, we'll get that out as soon as we can get to a computer. How's that?
Yeah, we can go ahead and send that document out this week still, well in advance of the next meeting, just so everyone, as their schedules allow, can kind of start to familiarize themselves with the basic premise of this. But we'll do the typical noticing, maybe a couple days if we can get it if I can get it done a little earlier, of the actual draft. That'll just come out.
And just-
typical with the remaining.
Just another
remaining
question. Do
packet.
we have a lot of these dwellings before any of these? I've heard of man caves and she sheds, but then I read this and I thought, no, we're talking about
we've
actual
always-
dwellings for people.
Yeah, we've always had standards for them.
Mhm.
In the existing code prior to what may have been voided, we had standards for guest houses and for second dwelling units.
Mhm.
Main difference between them, second dwelling units could be full
Your
complete
parents
house,
and other, yeah.
but they could be a full unit in that they had it. Yeah.
Okay.
In that they had a. Sorry. Go ahead.
You see often. All right.
We've always allowed both, but it's been something that's just in the code. Some people come in and do it, or they ask about it. Since the legislation had passed, it's now something that's really been publicized more. People are aware of it, and I don't know how many are we getting a day at least coming in and asking. I could say at least a handful every day. Not that are submitting, but at least the inquiries. Anywhere 3 to 5 that we're dealing with, and then a lot of them are coming back and formally submitting for it. So the interest has definitely ramped up.
What's the average cost as far as for fees and all of that to get a project like that pushed forward?
I apologize. I don't really know that information well. As far as building fees, impact fees, I can work with our building official. So for the next meeting, we can bring that forward as an example. But as it's structured, this would simply be building permit fees, any impact fees, potentially any additional utility connections, were they to meter it separately. That's something I will have put together so we can bring that forward for you at the August meeting.
Yeah, I think I don't want to call it, I'm just going to say, I don't think we should rush the judgment. There's a lot of things here. My son's an architectural designer. He has his own firm, and he's all over Orange County and LA County. He said it's all over the map. It's just unbelievable with the cities. There, you go to one, it's one thing they want. Fees on this one, it's crazy. So I think we really want to know what we've got and understand what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because going back to the well again, might not be that easy. I don't know. But
Yeah, absolutely, and that's been something that we've been working both, Oliver can attest to how many times I've bothered him about it. and then our discussions with legal as well, because there's the legislation that has been adopted by the state is both very explicit and extremely unclear. Yeah, you could probably say as typical if you wanted. So the areas where we do have a little bit of flexibility, it's really cities are trying one thing. Maybe we can get away with doing this still. Maybe we're limited here, and it's running the gamut. So we're really trying to figure out, we don't want to be the test case on it too much. We want to make
Hardly.
sure we find something that is going to work for us, but we've got something that does clearly adhere to what is the new law, that is going to create, the quality development here in the city.
If I may also, not to drag this on any further,
already
we have to
9 o'clock.
comply with state law regardless of whether or not we do an ordinance.
Yeah.
That's really the point. And so if we want to limit size, do this, that, or the other, we don't have that choice now. The state law is what the state law is. What we're trying to do is, by our ordinance, is kind of tailor it to our city. What do we want to see? Do we care if they're single-story or two-story?
Yeah.
I don't know. But right now, they can be two-story.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing because the state law says it. And so unless we say something different, frankly, they could do whatever they want based on state law. And so that's where we get in some of these situations where, because a lot of the applications that we get, they're existing houses.
Yeah.
It's an existing development, and frankly, how are we going to shoehorn something in so we can make some income?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. There's no limitation on owner occupancy right now. So I go in, I buy a house, I build an accessory unit in the back, and I rent it out. You'll never see me again. And that's where we're at now. So I don't know if we need to rush to judgment, but we need to be mindful of how do we want to regulate to the extent that we can. And that's really where we're at. And so that's what we're hoping to kind of get some recommendations that we could pull forward to the city council to handle these. Thank you.
I did that. Stephanie, that was me. Yeah, sorry. No, I just got tired of the slide. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Oliver. Thank you,
Thank you.
Travis.
Thank you. See you next one.
All right. So that's kind of concluding our meeting. I want to move to Planning Commission reports and announcements. If any of the commissioners or the staff have anything to comment on, anything to report? No?
Question.
Yes.
Oliver, City Council's moving to the library for meeting next month, I think I read. Are we following suit?
We are not. So
We're
all the
not.
commissions, all the committees will still meet here. This won't be known as council chambers anymore. It'll be known as the boardroom. So we'll still have our meetings here. Only council is moving to the library.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting until August 13th, 2019.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? I guess not.